Good afternoon and welcome everyone to a much-awaited college readout and press conference. We have the pleasure of having with us here today HRVP Kallas and Commissioner Šefčovič, and we will start with the college readout.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and sorry for the wait. We really had long discussions today. But before updating the college meeting, I would like to quickly mention the ongoing work we do on Ukraine. We also had the Security College talking about this. We have the Defense Ministers meeting from the Coalition of the Willing virtually today to discuss our support to Ukraine. It is clear that Russia shows no really wish to end this war, and we have seen the last night strikes on Ukraine again, so we need to address the consequences of this. For Europe, this can only mean one thing, more military, diplomatic and economic support to Ukraine. And in the event of truce, a strong Ukrainian military is the strongest security guarantee there is, and that's why we are also supporting them with training, funding and equipment. While Western leaders gather in diplomacy and autocratic alliances seeking a fast track to a new world order, looking at President Xi standing alongside the leaders of Russia, Iran, North Korea in Beijing today, these aren't just anti-Western optics. This is a direct challenge to the international system built on rules. And it's not just symbolic. Russia's war in Ukraine is being sustained by Chinese support. These are realities that Europe needs to confront. Now, on the college meeting, the Commission put forward proposals today for new deals with Mercosur and Mexico. Mercosur will be the EU's biggest trade deal to date, a free trade area with 700 million customers. This is a key trade pact and strategic step for European global influence. With Mexico, we are revitalizing one of our longest-standing trade partnerships to boost economic growth and competitiveness on both sides. Europe is strengthening existing alliances and creating new relations where all involved will benefit. The economic case for these deals is self-evident. They will create billions of euros worth of export opportunities, contribute to economic growth and support hundreds of thousands of European jobs. But these agreements go beyond trade. They are an example of the EU's fundamental commitment to build alliances that protect both sides. We are reinforcing the EU's global partnerships to boost resilience, defend shared values and uphold rules-based international order. And second, on EU-United States trade, the EU and US sealed a deal in July. Commissioner Šefčovič spent many hours in negotiating with the US counterparts during this mandate, and it is clear that the deal ensures stability in the world's largest trading partnership, provides predictability for our companies, and strengthens transatlantic relations. And today, the College discussed the next steps in the implementation. So, of course, Commissioner Šefčovič will update you on the details in a minute. And finally, the College today also approved the final elements of the EU's long-term budget, including those related to the single market, nuclear safety and justice. To recall, our proposed budget for the period between 2028 to 200... sorry about being a long day. So 2028 to 2034 is worth 2 trillion euros. It will protect European citizens, strengthen European social model and make European industry stronger. As part of the budget, we have proposed a tenfold increase in funding in military mobility and a fivefold increase in defence spending. As with every budget, we can expect very tough negotiations. We know from the previous years it has been quite intensive, but it is in everybody's interest to get over the line. Thank you from my side.
So, and because the HRVP will need to leave soon, what we will do, I'll open up for a couple of questions to HRVP Kallas before we then move on to the presentation by Commissioner Šefčovič of the proposal both on Mexico and on Mercosur. So, for questions to HRVP Kallas, yes, Andy.
Hi, it's Andy Bounds from the Financial Times. So Bert Langer, the chair of the Inter-Trade Committee in the Parliament today said, how can you tell the Global South that you're opening your markets wider to EUS food products and not to them? I mean, if you're fighting this battle to do deals with the Global South and to move them away from China, because in that meeting in China we saw many, many African countries, many, Brazil indeed as well. So what is the EU offer in this new geopolitical world? Thanks.
Thank you. Of course, it is more a question to Maroš, but on my side, I can tell you that everywhere we go, is it African countries or Asian countries, there's a huge interest in diversifying the investment and trade portfolios, and that's why we are, of course, working not only to have trade agreements, but also to have agreements on critical raw materials and different areas of interest. What is the European offer? European offer is very clear. We are coming to really have equal partnerships, not to deplete the resources that are there, but see the mutual benefits for both sides, really, so that the countries would also benefit from these kind of relationship. But on trade, of course, Maroš will look into this more. Good. Any other question? Yes, I see a hand there.
Inder Bugarian from El Universal newspaper, Mexico. What is the political message that the European Commission is sending today to Mexico after the decision taken today by the college? And considering the timetable of the European Union, when we could expect that they enter into force the agreement with Mexico?
Again, of course, the Commissioner for Trade can give you the details, but what we heard today in the college is that really there's a celebration for this agreement, and I think there was wide understanding as well. We already have that relationship. We are deepening that relationship even further to have mutual benefits for both sides. So I think it is a good message for the consumers on both sides. That we are opening up our markets so that there is access for companies, but also for customers to have more competitive products. Thank you.
Checking if there are questions online. Otherwise, in the room, to HRVP Kaja Kallas. Any other question? No. Let me check. It's not the case. Then we'd like to thank you very much for being with us and wishing you a good afternoon, HRVP. And we then move on, as promised, with Commissioner Šefčovič, specifically on the initiatives put forward and adopted today by the College on the Mercosur and on Mexico. Commissioner.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon from me as well, and thank you very much for the two introductory questions to my colleague HRVP, Kaja Kallas, because I can incorporate them already in my introductory remarks. I think that today what clearly was felt in our discussion and in the debate with the college was that it's a very important moment. And it's not a very important moment just for the European Union's trade policy, but for our broader economic future. The EU-Mercosur Partnership Agreement alongside the modernized EU-Mexico Global Agreement are not just trade agreements. They are strategic instruments that will help shape Europe's role in the global economy for the decades to come. And I think the truth is also vice versa. So if you've been asking about what is the message we are sending to our Latin American partners, I met yesterday with ambassadors of Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, Mexico. I had a long conversation with Mexican ambassador, and we all agree that today it's a festive moment. It's a festive event, because what we should clearly celebrate is that if it comes to EU-Mercosur agreement, that we are creating the world's largest free trade area, linking over 700 million consumers across 2 continents. It offers first-mover advantages to EU companies in the region, still largely protected by high tariffs. And just let me give you a few numbers, a few examples. Today, the bilateral trade is worth 112 billion euros. Already now, more than 30,000 European SMEs exports to the Mercosur countries. And what I would like to underscore here is the fact that despite of all the developments over the last decade, the EU is the largest investor there, with investments totaling more than 384 billion euros. So what would happen now? And again, I think it's very important to underline that thanks to this deal, however, we expect savings of over 4 billion euros per year in customs duties for our exporters. EU exports are projected to rise by 39%, amounting to some 50 billion euros, and overall a project GDP gain of 77.6 billion euros for the EU by 2040. What we very much appreciate is that from automotive to machinery to wine, chocolate, olive oil, the EU products will gain privileged access to the new market because tariffs as high as 35% will be eliminated or reduced, while we are also securing better access to the critical minerals. Moreover, we are strengthening the protection of European heritage. The agreement will safeguard 344 EU geographical indications, making it one of the most ambitious deals ever for the protection of European food and drink names abroad. And yes, we know that there are concerns, especially from our farmers, and I want to assure everyone that we have heard them, that this is actually new Mercosur agreement, because we've been listening very, very closely to everyone who wanted to improve it. We've been working very hard with our esteemed and treasured partners from Latin America, as well with our member states, with our associations, with our farmer representatives, just to make sure that the deal is ripe and the deal is good for the economies of both Mercosur countries and the European Union. Therefore, we negotiated calibrated quotas, gradual market opening, and also we introduced strong safeguards. And we also went even further than usual, because we just want to be 100% sure that we get it right. And therefore, should the market disruption occur, the proposed 6.3 billion euros of the Unity safety net under the next multi-annual financial framework stands ready to support the agricultural sector. In addition, the Commission is proposing to supplement the agreement with a legal act to operationalise the bilateral safeguard mechanism in our agreement with Mercosur. We are not reopening the text of the agreement. This is the unilateral instrument that will set out in detail how we intend to activate the safeguard mechanism if necessary. So we will work on this basis with Member States to address their specific concerns in the context of the ratification process. If you allow me to turn now to the conclusion of the modernised EU-Mexico global agreement, these two represent a major leap forward. And I'm very thankful to our Mexican partners for extending the friendship, for enlarging our partnership, and for moving into this next stage of even closer economic cooperation between the European Union and Mexico. As I'm sure many of you know, Mexico is already our second largest trading partner in Latin America, and this modernization was simply necessary. It was essential not only for economic growth, but also for strategic resilience. So we are securing better access to critical raw materials, opening up opportunities in public procurement and digital services, and eliminating nearly all tariffs on agri-food exports, a key advantage as Mexico is net importer of agricultural products from the EU. With 567 EU geographical indications protected and 100 million euros in annual agri-food tariffs to be removed, this agreement also brings tangible benefits to our rural economies. All in all, in today's uncertain geopolitical climate, diversifying our supply chains and deepening partnerships with trusted allies, partners and friends is not a luxury. It is a necessity. These agreements will anchor the EU's economic presence in Latin America, a presence that has been in decline. They will boost our competitiveness and contribute to a more stable and predictable global trade environment. So once again, this is much more than just about the numbers. The EU's extensive network of free trade agreements, the largest in the world, is a strategic asset for maintaining our global economic edge. That is why we continue to push forward on other key agreements, like with United Arab Emirates, with India, Indonesia, and Malaysia. I intend to travel to India later this month, and also the visits to Indonesia, Malaysia and Vietnam are planned because we feel that we can make advancement and clearly progress in be it our negotiations or, in the case of Vietnam, implementation of our 5-year-old agreement. If you allow me to conclude with another critical point. The last week we took an important step in implementing the EU-US joint statement of August 21. As outlined in that statement, this was necessary to secure the reduction of tariffs on cars and car parts to 15% effective as of August 1st, something that directly impacts the global competitiveness of our automotive industry. In addition, it was necessary to secure the carve-outs on generic pharmaceuticals, active ingredients, natural resources and chemical precursors effective from the September 1st. And this is just the first step. We will continue engaging with the US to obtain further exemptions. Despite some commentary to the contrary, the EU-US agreement is the only responsible way forward. A trade and the political escalation would have served no one except our global strategic rivals. Is that the outcome we want? The deal safeguards the immense scale of transatlantic trade, which accounts for some 20% of our total exports, driven by real companies, including thousands of SMEs, and supporting nearly 5 million European jobs. These jobs are not and should not be negotiable. And when we are discussing politics, we should also have people in mind, their jobs, their well-being, and their future. And this is important for all our deliberations because in the end, this is what the trade looks like. We are talking about businesses, we are talking about jobs, we look at consumers, and we look at competitiveness, all tied together. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, also for presenting the bigger picture of our trade relations. And I will start here at the very front. Yes, please.
Thank you. Hello, Archie Bamas from Context. Was it really necessary to split the agreement into two different parts? I mean, you could have presented the agreement and asked to each member state to ratify the whole deal. Don't you think that by splitting the agreement, the Commission is in a way forcing it through against the wishes of those who can have concerns on this deal? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. I think what we are discussing here is clearly very legal issues from one side. As you know, if it comes to the trade, this is an exclusive EU competence, and I can also tell you from many encounters I had with different business constituencies that simply if you negotiate the trade deal and the ratification comes much later, sometimes years later, that trade agreement becomes irrelevant. Look at what kind of dynamic time we are living right now. I mean, we just have to really fight for every single market access. We have to accelerate how we behave, what we do, how we negotiate, how we really get the friends and partners of ours who share the philosophy of free and fair trade and lower tariffs closer to us. So this was clearly the consideration that if it comes to the EU-only competence, we are going for EU-only approval process. And our ambition, if it comes to this trade part of these both deals, is that we would like to complete the approval process for Mercosur by the end of this year. I know that this is also the strong preference of our Brazilian partners. And if it comes to Mexico, the schedule is similar. We hope that we can have important even at the beginning of the next year, where I would say also this agreement could be celebrated. And of course, then the whole agreement, which also has a political part, which has investment part, which is also covering the national competencies, would go through the normal ratification process. But we just wanted to make sure that the businesses and economic operators can benefit from this very important deal with this new, very important market access in these economically very compelling times as soon as possible.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes. Jorge, please.
Thank you very much, Jorge Valero with Bloomberg. Two questions, if I may. First, on the Mercosur deal, France said that is based on the new safeguard mechanism proposed, that they're going to reassess its opposition to the deal. So how confident are you that this safeguard clause will grant France support, or at least not the opposition? If that, and in that case, that you have a clear way for this approval by the end of the year, as you just said that you expect. And secondly, former Commissioner Mario Monti criticized this morning the delay of the decision of the Google AdTech fine early this week. Said that it was bad for the competition policy of the EU. So my question is, if you consider this was necessary to ensure that, for example, the car tariffs will be lowered to 15% and not to poke the bear, let's say, not to irk Mr. Trump.
The edge of the scope of the press conference, Jorge. But Commissioner, please.
Okay. So if it comes to the first question on Mercosur. As you know, this is, as I said, the biggest trade deal we ever concluded. And I think, I'm not the economic historian, but it was probably also one of the longest being negotiated. But we didn't want, after the conclusion the negotiations in Montevideo last year, to rush things in a way that would not keep European unity and that we would not listen carefully to all important constituencies, be it the member states, like France, like Poland, like Italy, like a few others, but also we had very, very intense exchanges with the representatives of farmers' community. And we just wanted to make sure that if we put in place all the precaution, all the measures, all the safeguards which would make every single member state and I hope our agriculture community at ease that this deal is good for everyone, that it opens new opportunities for them to export, to be active on this global agri-food market, because, Jorge, you know very well that if it comes to agriculture, we are a global superpower. Nobody exports more than us. Nobody is more competitive than us. So I think we are very strong there. And I understand that there have been, I would say, the concerns and worries which needed to be addressed. So we had very intense exchanges with all member states, and particularly with those who had very concrete worries about the deals. So if you look at it from the larger perspective, we very clearly proposed a new way how we would address the farmers' concerns in the new strategic vision for agriculture. Because I know, and I spent with them a lot of time in my previous portfolio, a lot of concerns been linked with administrative burden, with how we are executing our policies, and I think that my colleague Christoph Hansen did a brilliant job in addressing most of these issues, and I know that the strategic vision for agriculture was received very well. Then there was an issue of the safety need, of some kind of reassurance policy, even though we are pretty sure that the deal we struck is a good one and we will not need any of these, let's say, emergency instruments to be used. But again, to be on the safe side, we used the opportunity to present our new multi-annual financial perspective proposal with more than 6 billion euros going to this safety net in a case that something happens. And then, just to be absolutely 100% sure, we've been working very closely with our member states on the specific safeguards for Mercosur. We are not reopening the agreement, but we are reassuring our member states and we are reassuring our agri-food community that we will use the chapter of the safeguard appropriately, and we are outlining very clear steps how this would be done. So what it means in practice? We are introducing enhanced monitoring. What does it mean? It means that we will be monitoring the imports of the agricultural products every 6 months. And we do it in a full transparency. You will know the numbers, member states will know the numbers, Parliament will know the numbers, and our Mercosur partners will know the numbers, and we can compare them if they are right. If we will see that there is certain anomaly, that there is something sudden which might cause disturbance in one or more EU member states, then we would proceed with the swift provisional measures in no more than 25 days after the identification of the sufficient risk in urgent cases. And again, this is kind of reassurance that if something happens, we'll be there, we'll be active. And then we are also clearly putting into this legal act the possibility of launching of investigations where imports suddenly increase by at least 10%, or import prices would suddenly drop by 10% lower than the prices in the EU. So I think that also from these measures, I think at first it shows that we are very confident that we have a good deal, that we will have a great cooperation with our Mercosur parties, and we are taking every precaution possible to make sure that our agri-food community should rest assured that this is the good deal for them, and this is a good deal for Europe and for Mercosur. And you've been asking also about other issue. So first, if it comes to this decision, what I would say is that our internal procedures exist for a reason, and using them is nothing out of ordinary. And those who know me, and I think, Jorge, you do, you are aware that I do not comment on confidential procedures or internal steps, but rather focus on the outcome. Second, I want to underline that I fully support the antitrust investigation against Google under the leadership of Executive Vice President Teresa Rivera. We've been in regular contact over the past few days, and she's fully aware of my support. And third, as you know, this is a complex case that requires a thorough assessment, and every step has been taken in collegial manner, and I can assure you that my priority is and always will be the European interest.
Thank you very much. Yes, Christian.
Thanks, Paula. Krishna with Ends Europe. I want to follow up on my colleague's question on the split of the agreement. The Mercosur counterparty has already referred to plans for interim application of the agreement back in December. So I was wondering, can you clarify whether you gave any assurances or indications during the negotiations that you would split the agreement to avoid a drawn-out ratification process of the trade aspects?
Thank you very much for your question. I think that, of course, the issue of so-called legal architecture of the agreement is always very, very, very important one. But when we discussed this with our Mercosur partners, I think it was quite obvious that what they prefer is that we would have, I would say, the speedy process, that the economic operators, especially in these geo-economic times, would prefer to have as fast implementation of this agreement as possible. And therefore, we both are aiming at a very speedy process. And it would be, of course, my delight if we could do it this year, because I know that this is priority not only for us, but it's in the Commission, but it's also priority for Mercosur countries, especially for Brazilian presidency. And I'm also very glad to say that we've been discussing it at length and in particular detail with the Danish presidency, because of course you have to kind of prepare the ground, you have to plan the meetings, and you have to make sure that everything is properly done. Tomorrow we will have a meeting with the chairman of the INTA committee, Mr. Bernd Lange, also to discuss with him how we are going to proceed with the ratification process of these two very, very important agreements, because as you know, this is, I would say, the full co-legislative process. But knowing him and also being in several discussions on this in INTA committee, I know that there is a huge interest to discuss it, to move fast, and I hope that with what I described are this clearly new feature of the Mercosur agreement, this very solid set of safeguards, all these measures which we put on the table, will also reassure those members of the European Parliament who have been concerned about some of the aspects of agri-food exports and imports in Mercosur agreement.
Thank you. And I go to the very left of the room. Yes.
Yes, good morning. Good afternoon. Bede Romano, Il Sole 24 Ore. Commissioner Šefčovič, from your words I understand the safeguards that you presented are going to be accepted by the Mercosur countries. Is this correct? Are they fully on board in accepting these safeguards? First question. Second question, we are discussing the issue of ratification in Europe. Are you confident that ratification in the Latin American countries will come soon and fast? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your question. I had a very fruitful, and I have to say cordial meeting with Mercosur ambassadors yesterday. And I mean, we are partners, we are friends, so we clearly have a no-surprise policy to each other. So they've been, of course, following this process very thoroughly, and we explain them also our proposal, our thinking in this in a great detail. Yesterday I presented the political outline. Today they had also the really thorough technical explanation of the safeguard. And what is most important in the safeguard is that the safeguards are not reopening the agreement. So the Mercosur agreement is as we agreed it in Montevideo. What is new, and therefore I can call it new features, is that we are just spelling out for the European stakeholders how we are going to implement, in particular, the chapter of the safeguards. What we are going to do, that it would be very thorough, it would be regular, it would be transparent, and that we are ready to take the action as it is spelled in our Mercosur agreement if something sudden happens. And I think this was very well understood by ambassadors, and I have full trust in them that they would convey it in this way also back to the capitals, because I think now, once we crossed, I would say, this threshold, I believe that we should put all our focus and positive energy to convince all the constituencies we have here in Europe and in Mercosur countries to get this done, to get this ratified as quickly as possible, because this is the largest free trade agreement which was ever agreed, which was ever signed. I mean, it offers remarkable opportunities for our economic operators, and it's an agreement which is fully, I would say, complementary to each of our economies. And I can tell you that I was first time in Montevideo on the, if I recall correctly, on the 5th of December. I've never been in Latin America. And I was there, I felt super welcome. If I wouldn't know that I'm in Latin America, I would have a feeling that I'm somewhere in the Mediterranean, European cities. The people have been extremely nice. The linguistic proximity is enormous, and you know, when you have a coffee in a Montevideo, or if you talk to the students, or if you're just walking the streets, everyone is asking Europeans, where are you? Why are you not more present here? Why it's not more, even more investments coming? Why don't we do more trade? And I think we've been missing this agreement. We've been negotiating it for too long. So I just hope that also this cultural and emotional element will help us to get over the ratification process, so the peoples from both continents can really benefit from this very important agreement.
Thank you. And I go again to my right. Angie, please.
Hi, Angela Scoogens from TVP World. Thank you for giving the floor to me. Commissioner, you mentioned the message that you're sending your Latin American partners. It sounds very festive, this is what you've said, but Poland today remains to be the last member state publicly opposed to the EU-Mercosur deal, with Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk reiterating today he continues to rail against it due to agricultural concerns. How will this deal and what you've proposed stymie his anxieties, particularly for farming in Poland? And what is your message to Warsaw in particular today? Thank you.
Of course, I mean, all this is it's very fresh, it's very new. I think if it comes to the safeguard measure, you are, after my colleagues in the college, and of course we are briefing right now our member states and the members of the European Parliament, but it's a new element. We are spelling out how we are going to address the concerns of the farmers, and we'll do our utmost to persuade our Polish friends that they should simply not be worried about some kind of unwelcome developments stemming from the Mercosur deal, because we have all these measures and all the system being built to prevent that. And I think that now, of course, very intensive diplomacy, explanation, exchanges of views will take place, and we do our utmost to explain in great detail to our Polish partners and to do our utmost to convince them and to convince the farming community that this is the good deal for them, because I know that Polish farmers are very competitive and they are very strong in exporting their goods. I'm from the neighboring country, so I know how many Polish products we have on our shelves, and I know that you can find them all over the world, so they are doing pretty well in exporting, agri-food exports, and I'm sure that also with this deal they could do even better.
Thank you. And there again on my right.
Hi, thank you. Kim McCrail from the Wall Street Journal. Commissioner, I wanted to ask about the safeguards you're talking about today. Do you think that these are going to become a necessary feature of future free trade agreements that the EU does, given the kind of opposition that we've seen to, from agricultural groups and from other groups? Are safeguards just now going forward going to be something you have to have there in order to get deals done? And then I also wanted to ask you a little bit separately. I'm sure you've heard European manufacturing companies raise concerns about 50% steel and aluminum tariffs from the U.S. stacking on top of the 15% baseline. Can you tell us, have you raised that with the U.S.? Have you received any assurances from them that that's something that they're going to address? And any sense of timeline on the U.S. 15% car tariff change? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll start with the safeguards. Of course, the propositions we made here linked with our Mercosur agreement is very much focused on what was, let's say, the major concern of our constituency here in the European Union. But they are not unique. I just know that also in our previous free trade agreements we introduced something similar. At that time it was for different technical products or different exports. So it's not something that we invented it for Mercosur, or it's some kind of super novelty. I mean, each free trade agreement to strike is, of course, it's a very laborious document. When I was discussing with my colleagues from Digitrade how can we accelerate some of the processes, so they wanted to show me how one free trade agreement looks like, and they told me that it's the simplest one. It's with New Zealand, and it's thick like this, because you have to cover 12,000 tariff lines. So I mean, it's a thorough work, and each free trade agreement has some specific features. So in this case, it was agriculture. In other agreements, it had more to do with the goods. So it's not something unique. We came up just for Mercosur. So it's very difficult to predict, because, as you know, we are now negotiating several free trade agreements with Indonesia, with UAE, with India, with Malaysia, with Thailand. I had good phone calls with also other trade ministers. So we'll see how much and how far we can advance these talks. And maybe there would be a need to introduce the safeguard, maybe for something else. But it's always at the end of the negotiations, when you strike the compromise, when you see that despite of, I would say, the best will and best intention, you still have certain concerns in certain economic operators community. So we want to address them. What is the most important is that it's transparent, it's fair, that your partners are fully aware, and this is what we are doing here. So I wouldn't say that it's like one size fits all, because each trade agreement is different. On steel and aluminium, there we are in a situation that I think we discussed it, I would say, in all our meetings I had with my US counterparts, and I'm glad that we kind of confirmed and reconfirmed that if it comes to steel, we are not each other's problem. We are not threatening the US steel or aluminium sectors, and US steelers, they are not a problem for the European steel producers. We are suffering from the same problem, and this is global overcapacity. So if we export to US 4 or 5 million tons, depending if you calculate derivatives in or out, this is really a drop in the ocean of what is imported to the United States of America. On top of it, this is highly specialized steel, which is not produced anywhere else. And we both know that American importers simply need it, and now they have to pay these very high import duties for it. And for us, it's the same, because what we've been getting from US was, again, highly specialized steel products. So it was one of the, I would say, first conclusions we made, that we should find the solution where we would look at it as a partners who are looking for the common solutions, and develop the common measures how to take on the global overcapacities which are devastating our steel and aluminium industry in Europe, but also which are creating a lot of problems for US. What I was explaining also to my American counterparts is the fact that we are working very hard on a new safeguard for steel and aluminium production in Europe for post-2026 scenario, because our current safeguard mechanism would expire by then. Of course, we would highly prefer if we can do it in a collaboration, consultation, understanding with our American partners, and we have to outline the features of how this mechanism would work for us Europeans very early on, most probably already in September or early October. So that's my, let's say, permanent argument I'm bringing in, that we should kind of have this ring of friends approach to trade between each other on 0% or MFN levels. I think my American partners, they know about it. They understand that they have their internal discussions about how to deal with the issue. So unfortunately, I cannot give you the date. I know that they understand the issue. They know about our positions. But when we will be able to resolve it, I wouldn't dare to say. But for us, it's pretty urgent, because in one way or another, in September, early October, we have to move with our policies how to protect the European steelers.
I will turn to the questions that we also have online. Valérie Astruc.
Bonjour à tous. Je voulais savoir si cette clause de sauvegarde...
Valérie, je vais t'interrompre juste parce qu'on te voit partiellement. Voilà.
Ah, voilà.
Là, c'est beaucoup mieux.
Merci, Paola. Je voulais simplement savoir si ces clauses de sauvegarde pouvaient être déclenchées, actionnées par un seul pays. Merci à vous.
Oui, merci, madame. Je peux vous répondre oui. On a discuté ça à plusieurs occasions, et c'est la même chose comme on a déjà utilisé dans l'autre occasion. Ça veut dire, je veux répondre c'est ici en anglais. So if there is a disturbance on the market of one or several EU member states, so this clause could be triggered in that regard. Yes.
Voilà. Et puisqu'on est en ligne et en français, Virginie Malingre.
Oui, vous m'entendez?
Oui.
Oui, bonjour. Je voudrais savoir le règlement à venir donc sur les engagements en matière de clause de sauvegarde. Est-ce que d'un point de vue légal, ce texte primerait sur le traité de libre-échange, l'accord commercial qui a été conclu entre l'Union européenne et le Mercosur? Pour le dire autrement, les pays du Mercosur ont refusé d'introduire ces clauses de sauvegarde dans l'accord du Mercosur. Donc, pourquoi accepterait-elle cet addendum, ce règlement, à moins qu'il ne soit justement, qu'il ne prime pas sur l'accord? Question.
Merci, madame. I would once again describe the architecture of all these measures. So first and foremost, we have this EU-Mercosur agreement, and already there is the chapter on the safeguards, which is accepted by our Mercosur partners, which we agreed finally at the summit in Montevideo on the 5th of December. So that's already in the agreement. What we are proposing right now to reassure the different constituencies across the European Union is the proposition of a legal act, just to clearly show that we are absolutely dead serious about how we are going to implement the safeguards. So we are putting the text, which is already agreed in this agreement, into practical implementation. So what does it mean? And you will see, and I think it's probably already public, or it will be public very, very soon, the main features of this legal act, where we will clearly say that we are going to do very thorough monitoring every 6 months. And we will monitor all sensitive agriculture products. And we will be announcing it, and it will be widely available for EU member states, for parliamentarians, for economic operators, and of course for our Mercosur partners, because we can compare the figures. We also are putting into this legal act, which is our internal legislation, but making it legal, totally obligatory for us, that we are ready to act very quickly within 21 days if something goes wrong. And the third very important element is how you would describe that something is going wrong. Or if you have sudden increase by 10%, or if you have sudden drop of the price for sensitive commodities by 10%. So all this we are putting into the legal act, so we would be bound by law to do this, just to reassure everyone in the European Union that the safeguards clause would be properly implemented. And I hope that this additional legal reassurance given to our member states, given to the European Parliament, given to the wider public, will reassure them that this is an excellent agreement, there is nothing to worry about, and on top of it we have these additional elements of also financial safety net if this would be needed, but we don't believe this would be the case. It's really the reinsurance business in this case, just to kind of be 100% clear that we believe that everything will work fine and well.
Good. I'll take one final question. The Commissioner has been very generous with his time, especially bearing in mind that you haven't had lunch yet.
Yes.
So, with your understanding, Jorge.
Hello, Jorge Liboreiro with Euronews. I want to ask about the United States. You mentioned it, and we've seen the latest threat from Donald Trump to impose substantial additional tariffs on countries that enforce digital regulations like we do. Do you take this threat seriously? Do you see it as a new chapter in the trade war? And do you think you can hold your ground and defend our sovereignty after making so many concessions to Trump? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that if you look at from the perspective, the first and foremost, I would ask the question, and you are a high-quality journalist, so we will be able to do the comparison. Tell me who got better deal than the European Union. Just tell me. I would like to read it, show me. Second, I would like also to challenge your investigative nature, just to see what is the real level of the tariffs being paid. We are analyzing it ourselves, so let's see, what would be your conclusion. And also, I believe that you would agree with me that the nature of our conversations and communication has evolved in a positive direction. It's much better than it was before. We are not talking only trade, we are talking about a lot of other very important geopolitical issues, and I think at this very tense geopolitical moment, this is very important. I can also reassure you that for us, technological sovereignty was never debatable. Our legislative autonomy, our technological autonomy, the sovereignty of our legislative process and respect for our laws was always the paramount importance, and we've been always very, very clear about that with our US partners. So, as you have seen, we kept it out of our discussions. Will it come in the future? I mean, there is a lot of issues which will be coming in the future. What I see that is very important is that we would be discussing it in a more, I would say, calm atmosphere as a partners, with full respect for each sovereign's legislative processes, for the respect of each other's sovereignty, and for the respect for each other's laws. I think that's as it has to be among important partners, and as you know, we are biggest trading partner in the world, and we are allies, and all this should factor positively in such discussions.
Commissioner, thank you very much. I was pleased to see, as you were speaking, your quotes popping up in the news, in the social media. Thank you very much for your availability, for your participation, for the interpreters, and we will proceed directly with Commissioner McGrath to present the second package for the 2028-2024 multi-financial framework, the Justice Programme, with my colleague Marcus. And have a good afternoon.